Welcome everyone. The topic for the day is business centric recruitment and selection. I am sure that most of you would have heard about recruitment and selection. In this cases, what are the parameters that needs to be taken in considerations when you are operating a particular business? So, so agenda will be we will be talking about the various organization, what methodology did you employ for the recruitment and selection of the employees, the legal issues that is there that might be affecting this recruitment and selection, what is the role of an HR in the process altogether, and definitely about the role of the supervisors and the colleagues in the recruitment and the selection members. So here we go. Basically, recruitment is the process of attracting individuals in sufficient number. Remember, number of heads has to be plenty, otherwise you cannot pick and choose employees to your requirement, to your understanding. The quality will suffer in case the number of attracted applicants is less. So please remember, for sufficient number is a position that needs to be taken care of with the requisite skills and appropriately to apply for the open position within an organization. So basically, the process of attracting individuals in sufficient number with the right skill and at appropriate times to apply for open position within the organizations. So, what are the alternatives to recruitments? There are many alternatives. Namely, I'm just naming only four. One is outsourcing, where we can give the job to somebody, some other organization. Then we can have something called contingent labor, well, or popularly known as ad hoc labor. Whenever we require persons, we probably get hire people to get a work done, and this can be for only for the work related issues only, a particular work related issue. And then there are part timers or the temporary employees which we're talking about it, who are not working for the full duration, only they come for a part time part of the time of the, let's say, an 8 hour shift or 9 hour shift, they chip in for 3 hours or 4 hours at best, or probably 2 days or 3 days in a week. So basically these are considered as a part-time employees. And or else we can have the regular employees working overtime. In this cases, we can stretch those time a little bit more. If we can stretch this time as a little bit more and give them an incentive, probably what is the advantages is that the regular employees knows about the ethos, the practices, and the quality consciousness of the company. There are no requirement for retraining them as such. So overtime works best both in favor of the employees and the employer. So we need to understand the cost of recruitment and selection. Number one is the replacement cost, the supervisory, the training, the technical, the management personnel. It actually costs anything around about 50% of the salary to several 100% of the salary, depending upon the pedigree of the position that you people are acting. So we can have two sources: internal and sources, internal environment, and the external sources. Let's say, what is internal environment? Number one is the promotion things. We can promote people from the lower rung to a higher rung of the echelons of the hierarchy altogether. So the promotion can work. What is the advantages? It is an incentivized. It keeps people motivated. It enhances the speed of work or increases the efficiency because of the so-called needed motivations or the incentive that has been awarded altogether. So there are advantages of promotions from within, but doesn't it mean that the coin has two sides? If there are advantages, so are the disadvantages also. What is exactly when at times the company is forced to fill a vacant position from somebody in the rung of the employees, which the company may not be willing to do so. Why? Because the quality of the employees are not available or sufficient enough, or it's a mandatory position that the company has to promote somebody from within the organization. So that is not at times just, at time in principle very good or very lucrative as far as the efficiency of the management concepts is concerned. Number two is there is a lack of new blood. When you don't bring somebody, when you don't nobody joins your organization from outside, it means you are basically continuing the same old ethos, the same old practices, the same old processes that was followed in the organization. So that means there are no new ideas, no new creativity that comes from a person. And last but not the least, you can only promote few people, right? Only few people can be promoted. But what about the rest of the people who are not being promoted? Therein comes the jealousy factors, or inbreeding starts upon it. There is something called um, backbiting, there is something called politics, there is something called nepotism that creeps in, there is something called shady environment or shady business that goes on about, and people might be detrimental towards the organization. And who are the people who are detrimental to the organization? The people who have not been promoted. Here we say the promoted peoples are not being promoted. They might work on contrary to the organization objective altogether. So what are we talking about it? We are talking about nepotism. The other things which comes around is hiring of your friends and relatives. When people are being hired from within the rung of the organization and they're known and dear ones, does your organization have policy for nepotism? It can be discriminatory, yes. It can be biased, heavily biased towards one particular family. Let's say somebody is in a senior position, he or she might actually entrust or empanel all his or her family members or extended family members, or for that matter his or her friends altogether. But then it becomes, the company can be put in a at stake altogether towards one particular family. Must ensure individuals are not in supervisory position and managing their own relatives, because if people are working in this from the same family in the same department, people will be overlooking certain responsibilities, certain lack of initiatives, certain practices that might not be adherence to the company's policy. So this creates a sense of distrust, this creates a sense of we not lack of sense of brotherhood feeling among the employees altogether, because of the favoritism that might be out. We are talking about the external environment. Hence, after the internal environment, we can always talk about the external environment, wherein the labor market condition are of two things. There can be a strong economy and a weak economy. What is a strong economy? Means everybody has full of work, full of money. So that means there is a difficult hiring. Wherein otherwise in the weak economy, nobody's pocket is full and everybody is searching for jobs. The other problem would be too many applicants. You have a vacancy, there are too many applicants, there are a lot of time and effort being wasted over the employees altogether. So we'll talk about the discrimination issues. What are they? We are talking about it. We will be talking about the civil rights issues altogether. We have to talk about the age discrimination, which needs to be taken care of. We need to be talking about the pregnancy issues, the disability acts, the son of the soil concept that comes around it, and often more often than not, the local regulation states that you need to hire people from the native population itself. So that is one more thing that taken care of. Talking about the job postings in internal recruitment, the job posting can be announced over the portals altogether in the on the organizational website, or probably in the internal circulars as such. It can be announced there were, which is made available to all the employees. Ensure that everybody, even the disadvantaged employees, are aware of the job opportunity. Employee cynicism occurs when there is not equal opportunity, when company is favoring one particular section of the employees as such. We might talk about employee referral, or people might, the organization might say ki, why waste a huge chunk of money on advertisement and for recruitment and selection? Why don't we empanel or enjoy the word of mouth publicity? And employee referral is one of the cheapest sources of recruitment altogether. So this, some believe that this is the best route to a hiring of an employee. It can, and it often does perpetuate discriminatory hiring practices, as the case might be. We'll talk about the various sources of external recruitment. What is out there? We have the employment agencies, wherein the agencies are mushrooming everywhere who can provide you a job for our requisite fees. Executive search firms, probably the same placement agencies, but at a higher salary. Now these people are looking at a salary in excess of, let's say, $100,000 per year. So then we have the in-house recruiters, or the HR fellow who works for you, the local advertising where you can give it in the social media, you can give it in the newspaper, you can do it in any of the multimedia. We can offer internship with the various campuses, colleges, university, institutes. We can have a job fair. We can participate, as an organization can participate in a job fair, and it allows them to hire walk-in candidates. We'll talk about the college recruitment, and the walk-in candidates are there, that comes around it. So these are basically the sources of recruitment. Let us talk about the online recruiting. What are the advantages of internet recruiting? Number one, and the best one, it is cost per money. It has absolutely cost benefit analysis, the most inexpensive one. It is very quick, the response is very instant. You will have responses as soon as you post. Will generate a wide audience, definitely yes. Anybody who's been there, if you want to post it, if you want to boost it, if you want to spend a little bit of an advertising, in case of not being a free post, if it is a paid post, you will have responses in instant. Some selection can be done by the computers as saying what are the qualification that is required, and automated tracking by both the employers and the prospective employees. They can track their application as to what are the things. Now, did I say every coin has two sides? If you have an advantages, there is bound to be some disadvantages. So number one is the ease of submission will result in plentiful of applicants, of which many of them, probably half of them, are not even entitled to that particular job because of their qualification or lack of it. Then it takes the HR a lot more time to go through or screen through the applicants together. So let us talk about recruitment for diversity. An ethnically diverse background enhances creativity. People from different walks of life will bring in different perspective, will give a different point of view altogether to facilitate an expansion in the global market. So recruitment must generate applicants from a wide variety of individuals. Train recruiters to use objective standards, definitely yes. Include pictures of minorities and disabled employees on the recruitment flyers, wherein it shows that you are equal employment opportunity providers. Like, that's what needs to be done about it. Make sure the ads are in bilingual. One is in your national language, the other the local dialect that needs to be incorporated into. So we have to have the diversity factors plugged in. Then we comes to the HR dilemmas of employee referral, the cheapest source of recruitment, but the organization at times get liable or can be taken to the laws of the land and the legal avenues altogether because of the discriminatory practices that can be going around it. So you need to answer it. Should the organization continue with the practices, or should it abandon the program altogether? Remember, this particular program of employee referral is very effective, but no candidates from protected groups gets hired. Probably people or sect of a society, section of the society, which might not be properly represented in the organization, will never get a chance to get at all. So the employment application, what does an application needs to be mandatory mentioned out there? Number one is the applicant information as to the name, the photographs, the address, and so on and so forth. Applicant signatures certifying validity of information, definitely yes. Employment at will, whether the applicant is doing it at his or her own sweet will as such. Nobody is forcing them to work around it. And a permission which needs to be given to the organization for a reference check. Remember, this is a must because nowadays it is an age of privacy and people would not like to get fooled around altogether. Similarly, the organization needs to put their own safeguards on. So permission needs to be sought at the very first stage itself. In case they are not comfortable, the company is also at free will to reject their applications in the first place altogether. So avoid following. Number one, discriminatory information. Don't give dual information which is diagrammatically opposite to one another. Citizenship and social security data, obviously yes, you don't need to give the we need to solicit certain data which has been issued by the federal government. We are talking about the information of the past or let's say any disabilities or worker compensation issues that might comes around it. This needs to be taken care of. We are talking about disability issues. What is disability issues altogether? We need to understand, people are not being negated or being viewed in a negative connotations. We will not be soliciting any past salary levels until and unless things are getting cleared. The birth date, people are a bit finicky as to what is their age, their education dates, the driver license information, and so on and so forth. Please do not solicit such information until and unless you have got the so-called permission to do so, and if you are in all likelihood in favor of hiring that particular applicant. So we'll talk about the screening interviews usually conducted by telephone, not done in most of the organization, but definitely is one of the favorite thing nowadays. Many of the companies are actually screening the interviews in the social media. They look into the social media as such, and will have a fair bit of an idea as to what kind of applicant or the person is altogether. So a few straightforward questions that goes around here and eliminate less qualified people in the selection process in together. We have the test. What are the selection tests? In case of a large number of applicants, we can have selections test wherein it becomes very easy and very objective to understand or to dissect the potential employees altogether. This selection test can be standardized, and it has been applicable applicants to every applicants. They will go through those tests, probably score, and their score can be published, and it can never be challenged also. So reliability factor is very consistent and very high. Validity, definitely most of the organization around the globe would be actually measures what it claims to measure. So it is a very high scores which relates to the very high success on altogether. No, what kind of test we can talk about it? One is a cognitive aptitude test. We have job knowledge test. Now, what is cognitive aptitude test? Is test measuring about your reasoning, vocabulary, verbal, numerical skills. Talking about the job knowledge skills, is the tech know-how we could go around it. Work sample test, maybe a programming, maybe a particular dish. If you are asking for a job in a salon, maybe one sample haircut, or certain elaboration or scope of work that can be displayed altogether. Then we have the psychomotor ability test to assess whether you are good to go with all your limbs and you are equally responsive all your limbs. Personality test is the way you carry yourself, the personal characteristics that needs to be taken care of. At times it is your stress test, at times it is your cognitive ability that needs to be taken care of. Vocational interest test identifies whether the person has the affinity to perform very of a high standards in a particular job. And last but not the least would be your honesty and integrity test, which an every employer looks into for all his or her. So why do we go for the interview guidelines for recruitment in a business focused recruitment and selection theories? First, it can be a team interviews wherein a group of people can be answering all together at one go. We can have a structured or pattern interview. It is the preset question numbers which needs to be asked on each and every candidate. Remember, each and every candidate, the same set of questions have been asked, but in this case in isolation with each others, nobody is able to hear what are the responses. Then there's something called non-directive interviews. With non-directive interviews is nothing has been planned, and probably the interview moves in a direction as per the requirement of the situation. It can be anything, we do not know what to go around it. Absolutely, this is the case that needs to be taken care of. Then comes the situational or problem solving test, in wherein a particular candidate might often be given a situation, a proxy situation, almost a realistic situation, and asked and see the reaction wherein he or she performs. Then comes the behavioral interview test to a particular situation that we look into it, whether they can solve a problem, whether they can get stressed out, whether they maxed out, whether they burned out is the question that needs to be taken care of. Talking about background verification, in fact 90% of the time people lie in their resume. This needs to be checked. Only 10% of the resume received by any HR, it stands true for the content. 40% of the applicant, what do they lie upon? Their work history, their educational background. So people exaggerate. 20% falsify the credentials and the license. What is the credential and license? They must have passed with the 40% marks, let's say, just for the sake of it. But they might claim that they have passed with 80% mark. They might have this work history, educational backgrounds are there, but see the difference of 40% and 80%. The efficiency lacks. 30% of the applicant may misrepresentation in the resumes altogether. One another form, they will give a misrepresentation. One of the common misrepresentation is their address proof, where they are staying. Probably they might give the address proof of their friend's name altogether. So that's one place that they actually lie. And 10% of the applicants are always true to the count. Doubt about it. We'll talk about the legal liability. Remember, business centric recruitment and selection are subjected to a lot of legalities altogether. The first and the foremost thing is the defamation charges that can be brought upon the organization, the act of harming the reputation of another, making a false statement of the third party. And in this case, it can be the procedures of the recruitment altogether. Then comes the negligence. What is negligence? The failure to exercise the standard of care that a reasonable, prudent person would have exercised in the same situation. These needs to be noted down time and again, every now and then. So that is what negligence is about it. Talking about the referral, negligent referral, the risk a person incurs when a past employer fails to warn a potential employer of the inherent danger presented by the former employee. So you have a referred employee working for you, and remember the referred employee might have some dark history about himself or herself. There might be messy things which he or she has been involved with. Now these needs to be told around it. People do skip around. So this is what is known as a negligent referral, wherein despite your reference check, or probably because it has been referred there, or the reference check is not very honest with them, with the prospective employers altogether. Then comes the negligent hiring. The liability incurs when failing to do a reasonable investigation of an applicant background, probably giving more power to them and in a particular position than in which he or she can actually inflict harm not only onto himself herself, but to the organization or perhaps to the society altogether. You need to understand that the people need to be very prudent in their job, very honest in their job, very diligent with their job. So we come to the fag end of the presentation is the job offer. It's this particular thing when the business particular actually gives a job offer via phone, or probably gives a medical examination as a one of those preconditions for you to join, or probably before offering the letters altogether, discuss the salaries, the benefit, the perks, the incentives, give a realistic preview of the jobs as such. What are the traveling allowances? What are the traveling things? The harsh reality that needs to be done, and employment eligibility needs to be verified. Once done, you go ahead with your job. Remember, you have offered the job, so what does it goes around it? You need to have a proper understanding about the cost, time, quality, and longevity that needs to be taken care of. What was the cost involved in your recruitment budget? Are you within your budget? How long did you feel? Was it taking a too time consuming process, or is the applicant who have been finally joined in an organization is performing well within the times of his joining? Then comes the quality, where are applicants well qualified for the job altogether? This is what needs to be done, understood. Then the longevity, what about the turnover? Do your new hires stay for a longer term or not? This is an answer that needs to be taken care of every now and then. With this, I come to end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video.